These are the dusty whiskeys you should be hunting this year.
Hi, I'm Jonathan.
Hi, I'm Taryn, and welcome to Whiskey Break.
Today, we're going to talk about all the dusty whiskeys you should be hunting this year. We're going to call dusty as being like around 2020 and before. I know some people consider dusty to be like 80s, but that's before we got into whiskey, or right when we did, and we missed out on a lot of bottles that we wish we got back then. And these are all the bottles that we've seen on hunting trips and are still out there on shelves and that you need to look for and pick up if they're a good price.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Our first bottle up is an older Elijah Craig barrel proof batch.
Yes, if you guys have seen our San Diego bourbon hunting video, this was actually a big topic of discussion. So we actually went to Dick's Liquor and we saw that these were the older Elijah Craig bottles. And, you know, we were super interested. Thankfully, we got it for a really good price. And spoiler alert, I do really like this over the new releases.
Yeah, for something like Elijah Craig barrel proof, we're not the biggest fans. Like, we don't try to hunt every new release. You know, if we find a good, well-reviewed one, we'll go for it. But especially bottles that were before we got into bourbon hunting. I mean, 2018, I don't think we were even seriously drinking whiskey. 2020, we were just barely getting into it. And so for anything, for us, it would be 2020 and before is what we look forward to. That's what was really well reviewed. Yeah. Some of you, it might be 2021 or 2022. That was right before. And we find these are really, really good. It's a little bit, especially as the new Elijah Craig barrel proofs dropped that 12-year age statement. These all had it. They had a lot of old whiskey in it. Yeah. We'd much rather pay a premium on something that we just can't find anymore instead of a just hyped up batch. And so any of these old Elijah Craig barrel proofs, make sure to hunt them.
Next up is Old Knob Creek releases.
Yeah, so this one is actually, I believe, the first Knob Creek Cask Strength Rye release. It was a limited release, came out in 2018, as it says on the badge there. And I think this was before they started doing their like Knob Creek Rye single barrels. They were just getting into it. Rye was this hot new thing back then, apparently. And so basically our recommendation are any of these like squatter old Knob Creek bottles that were kind of limited releases back then. You can still find them on the shelves and they weren't super expensive at the time. And so some of them will kind of hide in the back. They were priced several years ago and haven't gotten bumped up. So we actually got this one and the 2019 release for under $80. We recommend looking for bottles like these, the Knob Creek Cask Strength like 12 year, some of those interesting ones, even just old Knob Creek single barrel bourbons in that old label. It said 9 year on the bottle, but a lot of those were regularly 10, 12 plus years old in it. And so just anything in this older bottle, take another look at it. It might be worth picking up.
Absolutely. And I know maybe some of you guys know this already, but beware of the wax. It is a little rough. Obviously, with this bottle, it's a little hard to pick up. And yeah, definitely not the cutest looking, but the stuff inside is not that bad.
If you're enjoying this list, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff down there. Thanks for watching. Let's get right back into the video. Our next recommendation is old Sagamore releases.
Yes, so this one in particular is the port finish, and we were super surprised to see this one because to our knowledge right now, this is a distillery only finish. So yeah, excited to see this. This is a batch 1D, so maybe they had some distribution here in the very beginning and now they made it, you know, Maryland only juice. So we really love this bottle though. And there are quite a few other Sagamore releases that have this old style label. We've seen tequila, we've seen rum, Manhattan, just a bunch of different stuff. And you'll always notice because it has a lot of text. So there's like tons of text on here and that's not, you know, Sagamore's signature anymore.
Yeah, I will say, I think I love the price. It's always $80 or less. That's just the Sagamore way. They're always super well priced. But some of those finishes are a little crazy, a little heavy-handed. So if there's a particular finish that, you know, you're looking at the tequila finish and you hate tequila finishes, don't expect it to be the magical one that turns you around. But a lot of these are really, really good, especially this port finish. We love always looking out for new Sagamore releases, new to us. Next up, we have old Belle Meade releases.
Yes, so these are kind of an interesting one. Right now, you'll probably see them go by Nelson Brothers. So these bottles, the Belle Meade bottles, are strictly discontinued or distillery only. So yeah, very interesting product, and you can find them a lot of places still.
Yeah, these are all generally old MGP, and so the Belle Meade Reserve is one of the more famous ones. It's just being a really good cask strength MGP, We just picked this one up, so we weren't able to crack it quite yet. But we've also found some of their finished bottles. We've found the cognac and the Madeira. They were also super famous for having an incredible honey finish before that was really popular. So if you can find any of those, I'd say those are worth the pickup, because even their new releases are like $90 to $100, and you can find these for around the same price. If you can find their single barrel proofs of those finishes, that's definitely the ticket that you should go for, but we haven't had the best luck in our area. But just in general, these old Belle Meade bottles, usually a great price and usually just nice old MGP in them, kind of hard to pass up.
Next up is Old Smoke Wagon releases.
Yeah, so this bottle is actually a small batch, but we rarely recommend looking for uncut unfilters that are some of the earlier batches. I'd say the general cutoff in my head would be like under 100, under batch 100, because that's when they were first coming onto the scene. They're getting a ton of hype from all of Whiskey Tube, and they still had access to all those really old MGP barrels. And then as it started to explode, as whiskey started to explode, obviously those stocks is hard to get to. So not that the Uncut Unfiltered is a bad product or bad value now, but just I would say those early batches is really, that's where you get a lot of bang for buck. It's hard to find really good barrel-proof MGP at cheaper than you can find it.
Absolutely. And we particularly really like this small batch because this is actually the clear glass. So this is something that they did during COVID because there was some glass shortages of their usual like amber color. But yeah, this one's clear and kind of, interesting and pretty. I love, seeing all the different embossing. It's very cool.
Next up, we have Old High West releases.
Yes, specifically, I want to talk about these barrel selects. So this is the older barrel select. It obviously is very different than what they have right now, which is that blue label. It's very like matte. But yes, this one specifically stands out because a lot of their finishes were much more unique. So they had, a lot of different bourbon finishes and a lot of different rye finishes that we highly recommend. And we still see them on the shelves regularly for about $65.
Yeah, we love these old barrel selects. They're just fantastic values. But then in addition, there's a lot of the old High West, like more experimental releases that they kind of got famous for and then went through a weird transition of discontinuing, making distillery only. Some now exist, some don't. And so the ones that we see and that we are still looking for are like Bur Rye, Son of Bur Rye, Yippee-Ki-Yay. Some of those where they're just really cool, fun finishes that we wish High West still did, but they don't. And so we always keep an eye out for those. Sometimes they're priced sky high, but you might be able to get lucky and get a good deal on them. Staying on the High West train, we also recommend pre-17J High West releases.
Definitely. Yes, this actually caught our eye at our last bourbon haul. So obviously, it is an older bottle, so 17B really stood out to us, but it was only $40, so we had to give it a shot.
Yeah, so if you don't know the whole story, basically it's rumored that 17J on the batch number is when they started to transition into newer, younger whiskey stocks. And so this one is just their American Prairie bourbon, so it still probably has some older stocks in it, but the main one you want to look out for are their Rendezvous Ryes. That's their premium rye. That's what the base of Midwinter Night's Dram is. And so back before 17J, they had like some really old, like 16 plus year Barton rye, a ton of old MGP in it. And again, like a lot of these bottles on the list, they weren't really hunted at the time. And so if they're still sitting on this shelf, they probably got marked several years ago and haven't been looked at again. Like we said, we found this one for $40. We'd love to find one of those old Rendezvous Ryes for under 100. And you just can't find whiskey that old for under a fortune.
Yes.
And so just make sure to look at these batch numbers and see if it's worth the pickup.
Yeah, if you've noticed, we haven't opened this one yet, but excited to try it and we'll let you guys know how it tastes. Next up is the initial batch of your favorite craft whiskey.
Yeah, so obviously we have Redwood Empire here representing. We just able to secure a batch one of their American whiskey, and this just goes out as a general recommendation. If there's a certain, particularly small distillery that you really enjoy, look out for one of their first releases. Probably very different from what they're producing now. Probably different bottle shape, different just product in general. But we'd say don't expect it to be the best whiskey on the planet. Obviously, like with this Redwood Empire, we've tried a batch 2 before, and we like Lost Monarch more. We think they've really grown. They know what they're doing now. But we don't try to be collectors, but it's kind of nice to have like one of those first bottles, those initial batches. And so we've seen it obviously from Redwood Empire, Sagamore. We've gotten a bottle and bond batch 1. We've seen a lot of Westward bottles that are not that diamond shape, that are just more standard. And so just look out, they're out there somewhere and they might just be saying, and this is only $45. It might be pretty cheap.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this bottle, I mean, we almost treat it like merch. It's kind of like, you know, really supporting, you know, the first place that made you feel something, or, you know, just making sure that we support the brand. And it's just really cool to kind of see how they progressed.
Exactly. Next up, we have older bottlings of Old Scout.
These are bottles that I actually find myself going to a lot lately. These are MGP, but they actually are extremely within the profile that we tend to gravitate toward. They're very fruity, and I'm just really liking them, especially like against like an Eagle Rare or a Buffalo Trace product. I find myself going to this a lot more lately.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the newer Old Scout bottlings. They're still fantastic value, great MGP, but it's a little extra special to hunt for these old style wine bottle looking ones. And so this one's not too special. It is just a 6-year bourbon, which you can still find, but you can find 10+ year ones if you get lucky. And definitely make sure to check the back out. It should say distilled in Indiana. That means it's MGP. They do have some lower proof ones from Tennessee that we would probably avoid. But in general, we love Old Scout. They're a great MGP bottler. They also have rye barrels that we need to try. And so keep an eye out for these. Might stumble upon a great value.
And last on the list is Redwood Empire's older Haystack needles.
Yeah, obviously they revamped their Haystack needle program. It's got all their new distillate in it, and we're really excited about those. We really enjoy it. Really glad they kind of made that transition. But these older Haystack needles are still around. They're all 12 to even 15-year-old MGP bourbon, about 110+ proof. Some of them are finished, some are unfinished. This is a Cabernet Sauvignon finish. We've tried apple brandy, just a ton of ones out there, and it's really hard to find good bourbon at that age statement, and these are still out there. They're still around. We really enjoy them.
Absolutely. And this bottle actually was one of the first bottles that we got that was like around that $200 mark. I was a little nervous because we had never been big fans of that older age statement, and I was, you know, nervous spending the $200. But I actually really enjoy it, and with the finish, it doesn't get into that super oaky, super drying territory. So I really enjoy these bottles, and I'm excited to see if we can, you know, pick up some more along the way.
Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the list. And yeah, we hope this list is really helpful to you guys, especially if you're hunting a new area on vacation or something like that. That's when we find we have the best luck looking for dusty whiskeys like these.
Yes, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.